talk about success v happiness, well, I ticked all the boxes of societal success. But until a few years ago, I honestly don't think I was happy. This is why I think it's really got worse over the last couple of years, is your brain is always trying to predict what happens in the future based upon its past experience. Why do some people make changes for a few weeks, for a few months, and then they flip back to where they were before? And I thought, well, what is it? Is it just information? If you give people the inspiration, the information, they feel better when they make those changes, yet they still can't keep them going. What's going on? And so I was on a quest to find out, well, is there something that's even more upstream than lifestyle? And I think there is. I think about the research and what it shows. And it's very, very clear that there is a further cause upstream from our lifestyle, and that's our happiness and our mental well-being. But how you feel about yourself and the world, how you deal with conflict, how you approach your day-to-day life, your thoughts, your well-being, your mental well-being massively influences your day-to-day behaviors, your diet, your sleep, your movements, how you manage stress. And that then influences your physical health. Now, it is true that your approach to food, movement, sleep, and rest can also go up there and affect your thoughts and your well-being, for sure. But the point I'm going to try and make today is that if you focus on what's going on up there, your happiness, you will automatically start to feel healthier. No one's talking about happiness. And I think this is the missing link in health. And I think this is the reason why so many people are not getting better and transforming their lives. And I think this is the more obvious reason to get. People who feel happier and more content with their lives naturally make better lifestyle choices. Right? So if you feel pretty good with your life, you're not getting overly stressed, whatever happiness means to you, and we'll get to my definition of happiness shortly. I say happier people naturally make better lifestyle choices. I think that's something we can all get our heads around. But it's not just that. Independent of your lifestyle, happier people are healthier. Well, so happiness and health is absolutely linked. So I think we need to be talking about it. I guess that begs the question, what is happiness? And I'm going to get to my definition of happiness, which I hope you find useful in just a moment. And I think my dad made a mistake that many people are still making today, which is conflating success and happiness. This is one of the biggest things, I think, out there, which is causing people problems with their mental well-being, but also their health, frankly, is that we think those two things are the same. Now, they can overlap for sure, but for most people, unless you give it some thought, they are two completely separate things. Now, I'm not saying that happens in every situation, but for this person, and I've seen this over and over again, this is a particular problem you see in men. Right? I'm not saying you never see it in women, but it's typical. You see this a lot in young men. And we know that, there's a real mental health problem in men between the age of 35 and 50, very high suicide rates. And not making time for those deep, meaningful connections is a big part of that. Right, so there's a chapter in the book called Have Massless Conversations. And essentially, what I make the case in that chapter is that what is a massless conversation? It's a conversation where you can take all these figurative masks off and truly be yourself and kind of be honest. Reveal your insecurities and the things you're struggling with without fear of judgment or criticism. Now, many of us are lucky to have those people in our lives. Not everyone, but many of us. But we're so busy chasing success or things that we actually don't have time to nourish those relationships. I've been guilty of this before, for sure. And it's really not that difficult. And it comes back to this whole idea of happiness vs success. Many people chase success and they neglect happiness whilst they're doing it. And they find that they get that success and there's still that hole inside. Many of us are doing the same thing. We're confusing the two things. And there's a few exercises in the book to help you start to be a bit more intentional about this. One that, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this in the media or not, but I think it's really powerful. Imagine you are on your deathbed right now and look back on your life. What are 3 things you will want to have done? Just have a think about it. What are 3 things? And then ask yourself, what are 3 happiness habits you would have to do on a weekly basis to ensure that you get that happy ending that you've just defined that you want. It's a very, very powerful exercise because what it does, it makes you realize that, oh, at the end of my life, for example, I want to have spent a lot of time with my friends and family. If that's something you're going to say, then if you look at your week-to-week life and go, man, I say I want that at the end of my life, but I'm too busy, like Stuart, to actually make that happen, you're going to really struggle. And here's the truth, right? The uncomfortable truth is, yes, we're all different. We've all got different preferences and things that we want to do in life. But we pretty much know what every single one of us is going to say at the end of our life. How do we know that? Because palliative care nurses tell us over and over again. People say the same thing. I wish I'd worked less. I wish I spent more time with my friends and family. Right? I wish I'd allowed myself to be happy. And the big one for me that gets me every time that I think about it, I wish I'd lived the life that I wanted to live, not the life that other people expected of me. How many of you are living the life that you want to live? Well, I know it's a deep question, and it's not something you can answer necessarily overnight and change things the following morning. But just asking yourself these questions, developing the awareness that actually, you know what, something's a bit off track here. That's the first step in change. For me, that first step happened when my dad died. Huge hole in my life, like for many people when one of your parents dies. It wasn't just an emotional hole, it was a physical hole. I used to care for my dad, so I'd see my dad 3 times a day, pretty much 7 days a week. So I suddenly had all this time. So that forced me to ask a lot of these questions. And I've realized so much in my life, I was living someone else's life and I wasn't truly happy. So success v happiness is very, very important. So I said I'd mention what I consider happiness to be, because you can say happiness to 10 different people and they'll come up with 10 different interpretations of what that happiness is. And I think happiness is quite a confusing term. I think the interpretations of, that kind of billboard image of a smiling couple with their kids behind them and the beach and the sea, right? That's what a lot of us think happiness is, that we're going to one day stumble across it when life is perfect and we don't have any struggles or stresses. Well, that ain't ever going to happen. Right? For me, that's not what happiness is. That billboard image is a pleasurable experience. It can form part of a happy life, but I don't think it's happiness. And what I try to do with this, I was thinking, well, I don't want to just talk about happiness and say it's really important for health, right? You've got to focus on happiness. But what does that mean to people? Right? That's hard. Of course, people want to be happy, but how? And so what I always try and do in my work is make things practical. And I spent months trying to break it down. What are the components of happiness? What are the ingredients that we need in order to be happy? And I've come up with this concept called the Core Happiness Tool that I genuinely think is going to be useful and practical for every single one of you. And the idea behind it is this: just as if you go to a gym and lift weights every day, do bicep curls every day, you are going to get stronger and bigger biceps. Right? You know that's ingrained in you. You understand that. I'm basically inviting you to consider that if you work on each of these 3 legs of this core happiness stool, you are going to become happier, no matter what your starting point.